a wife, a kid. You chose the better life. Go back to that. Forget about being Batman's savior.
Maybe you're right.
I got the hall, you take that CU.
You're the one giving orders now?
Just do it.
Would you consider this the finale?
Well, this is the season finale.
It's the season finale, but nothing is finished. Like they,
of course
they
not.
don't conclude anything.
Of course not.
It's obnoxious.
That's what. But that's
well,
what
that's called the
they...
cliffhanger, Lee. I mean, that's what that's what
this...
shows do.
Yeah, shows usually do it. Okay, so I mentioned this before, and I remember I was a little upset about it. It's one thing if the episode is a cliffhanger, or like there's like a resolution at the end of the finale, but then they like open up like a new can of worms, and you're like, oh, what's gonna happen with this? This doesn't even finalize the story they were going on with, and I feel like most shows do.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, but, well, because they would settle something, and then they would show you, like, oh, what's going to happen with blah, blah, blah.
Season 8 of Breaking Bad.
Well, that's different.
That's way different.
That was in the middle of the episode. That was in the middle of the
different.
season.
Yeah, that's the middle of a season. That's.
And they went a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
Like...
But that's mid-season. That's not end of season. So that's the only thing I want to say about this. Again, so I know this is the only episode I've done with you guys about Titans, but I've watched all of them. I actually watched this episode twice because I wanted to kind of catch up. And honestly, I did it mostly because I don't want to spoil anything. Well, so I need to know exactly how far back this is, because there's a lot of stuff that I think happened so long ago, but it didn't.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I forgot this really is a great episode.
This is fantastic.
I loved this episode.
This is fantastic.
It's really, really cool.
And I think I'm gonna, we've had kind of a different conversation prior to, but Will and I have been talking about wanting a specific Batman to be seen.
Well, I have. I don't know where you sit on that. I don't know where a lot of people are.
You've been asked.
I mean,
we've had conversation around it because it's something that you have been wanting.
I mean, the version, the old grizzled, Frank Miller Batman that kills is something that I've always really wanted to see portrayed on the big screen. Like, I've always kind of wanted to see that because I think it's super interesting. Another thing that's super interesting out of DC, and I don't know if it's a storyline that's going on currently or if it's something old and resolved, but there's another whole storyline out there about, some mob king actually goes ahead and does it and kills Batman, and Joker loses his mind and wants to, like, retribution because they took away his favorite toy. Like, there are all these wonderful stories that come out of DC that I would love to see, and so far, I mean, you kind of get that here, but not
in reverse.
It's a fantasy, but
in reverse.
Yeah,
you get it. You absolutely get it. No, but I'm on board. I think this episode was fantastic from beginning to end. Like, before, my favorite episode of the season was that Hank and Dawn episode we did a couple of weeks ago. I thought that episode was fantastic with the way that it dealt with trauma, with the way that it dealt with violence, with the way that the two of them met. I thought all of that was fantastic. It was a perfect story, and it completely took everything away from how heavy-handed this season has been on Bruce. And then it slaps you, like, right here into this episode, and it's like, well, here's all of that fan stories right here for you. It was very well done. This episode was fantastic. I love this. I love this show. This episode was awesome.
So I loved it too. The only thing I think I would have liked differently, I don't know how it would, story-wise, it probably wouldn't work, because I'm guessing at some point they're going to start bringing in more of the Justice League, because that's what they do with Teen Titans, or not in this case, Titans. What would have been cool to me is, aside from someone being in a wheelchair, if they could have done this more like, this was why Grayson left Batman in the first place. And they did a storyline that way, and it was actually real and not fabricated in this fantasy in his mind. That would have been cool.
I think you're supposed to. I think you're supposed to piece those. I think you're supposed to put those pieces together on your own. Like, clearly, the reason why Dick Grayson left Bruce is because Bruce was becoming a little bit too violent, and Dick felt himself going down that path. Like, I think that's what you're supposed to take. They don't come out and explicitly say it, but that's kind of the theme.
Which I see that, but I mean, what Grayson does, he becomes the epitome of who he's fighting against at the end.
Very
which
true.
That didn't happen. That doesn't happen. I mean, it's obviously like it's their idea of, it's not a parallel universe, but it's in his mind. So it's like a what if, like if this was actually happening. You know, Jason Todd's in a wheelchair because he got shot by the Riddler, because the Riddler never uses guns, and the Joker, but he does now. The Joker's dead because he got pushed off a building and fell into a.
He's not dead. Remember, he was still.
He's not dead.
He's not dead. But well, not at first.
Not at first. And then Batman goes on this like massive killing, which I think is. I love that storyline because it shows, because it actually takes what the superheroes in DC are all about. Are like, you know, we're never going to cross this line. This is a rule that we never break. And Batman's one of the few that was like either rides that line, or in this case, or the Frank Miller case where he crosses that line.
We were even talking a couple of weeks ago, and I know it's really loose. I know I'm reaching for straws when I say this, but we were even a few weeks ago when we were talking about Batman 89. He drops that bomb in the factory, and there's no way that people walk away from that. Like, people are dead. Like, there's no. So, it's not uncommon.
It's not, but the only argument there is, yes, he dropped the bomb with the remote control in Batman 89, and he did that, but
yeah, remember, it wasn't him; it was the Batmobile.
Yeah,
it was
sure.
the people, but it wasn't. Like,
I'm not gonna get into a conversation, you know, semantics about whether or not him pushing a button or him actually like doing. It's both the same thing. He dropped the bomb.
It is, but when people look at like when they did Man of Steel, and Superman and Zod are blowing through buildings and stuff like that, and thousands of people are dying. They were saying Superman killed people because he was doing this stuff. And where this I believe is different than what 89 was, is he's physically using his hands to, like, he's physically killing somebody versus just pushing a button, and it makes it more personal at that point.
Well, don't forget, like in Man of Steel, where he actually killed Zod, and then he screamed because he did it. And that was actually, I thought that was pretty cool. You know,
yeah.
It was because you never see that. I haven't watched that in years, but you never see him do that, and he did it, and then he felt horrible about it.
Right, but but they put him in a situation where it's like, I have no other choice.
Right. Right.
Batman,
he completely that I forgive Superman in that moment because his agency was completely ripped away from him. Like, he had zero agency in that moment. He had to do it. He did not have a choice. Batman,
it was
either in 89 or here where he goes lunatic, absolutely has a choice. And the difference between 89 and this, they're both killing, yes, but in 89 it was all, you know, mob people, factory, blah, 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 who cares? They're bad guys. Here, it's not just, you know, Arkham, it's staff.
Guards.
Yeah, whatever happened to the guy in Batman Returns who, like, with the bomb? He literally had a bomb strapped to his stomach, and he was just, he walks away.
It's
How about the guy on fire? Did anybody put him out?
So I did have one question. I didn't see it, but when Grayson's looking in this episode, when Grayson
he turns the car around and blasts him with the flame.
The devil. It was the devil.
What was he thinking in that moment? Because he turns the car around and the guy with the fire still tries to blow fire on the Batmobile. What do you think? What are you thinking, buddy?
Fighting fire with fire.
Speaking of the Batmobile, before I get into my question, I was watching, because we've been talking about it. I'm like, oh, we just watched 89, we just watched Return, so I'm like, you know what? I'll watch Forever.
You watched Forever?
I started to.
Why?
Because I'm like, I'm in the thralls of Batman now, so I'm like,
geez.
And then I watched it.
Horrible.
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, they destroyed it. So
I did something
worse. I never realized this. So the Batmobile in Forever has
Yeah.
the 3 fins.
Yeah.
Unless Robin's driving it,
Yeah, then it
it
just
has
flops
the,
around.
No. It has the middle fin,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so it's like 4 fins, and
Yeah.
it looks so dumb.
Oh, yeah, it
And they
does.
flop, like they do the flopping around. But I'm like, how did that middle fin become 2?
I thought I always thought it was because he just didn't know what he was doing. He must have pressed some weird button. It just proved that he was, inexperienced. That's all I thought when I saw that.
And then what I loved about this episode is when you see Batman, you never really see the bat suit
Oh, and this,
in the Titans. You
Yeah.
never see the bat suit. You just see like the silhouette of Batman.
which was cool.
Yeah.
So it leaves some room for like, what's it going to look like?
Well, it's kind of the same thing with like Gotham. Like you never really saw Batman until like the last episode.
That's because he was a kid through the whole TV show.
Yeah, but even so, it's
It's
like
like
they didn't,
Smallville he wasn't Superman until the last episode of
right,
of Smallville.
because the point of it was it's not about Batman,
Right.
or it's not about Super. Well, I guess it wasn't. About Superman.
So you say
But
you're in the throes
here-
of Batman and you went ahead and you watched Forever. I did something similar, and because I forget what I was reading, and I wish I wanted to shout them out, but there was an amazing argument out there that like justifies Batman and Robin for whatever reason. Like if you look at that movie as like a modern day 1960s Batman movie, just like kind of brought into modern times, it actually makes the movie a little bit better, which I can understand. I can absolutely understand that argument. However, I threw that movie on. And when he skated down that dinosaur, I immediately shut the movie off. I couldn't do it.
Cool party.
No, absolutely not.
Everybody
I was like, I
chill.
can't do this. I can't do this.
Hey, do you know what tonight's forecast is? A freeze is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when the bat skates come out.
I'm Mr. White Christmas. I'm Mr. Snow.
When the bat skates come out, that's just why I was like,
They just click their heels together.
it's horrible. Or
Like,
when they're
first of all, how much were those boots platformed? Because where did those skates come from? They're actual flesh feet?
Well,
I don't
no,
understand.
It's the bat suit or the Robin suit.
Yeah.
I understand. They didn't just manifest. It's not like he was working with nanotech.
In Batman Forever, Batman was always cold, so you never know.
Batman was always cold?
Nipples.
Oh, because of his nipples?
Because of his nipples.
Because of his nipples. Because of his nipples.
You have no idea. But I did appreciate in this episode though, when we're after one season, and we've talked about this all season long. Who are they going to introduce, Batman or Bruce? And I was always saying that if they're going to do it, they should introduce the whole Batman and Robin breakup. Because Robin's the one who has the issue, and Grayson's kind of going his own way. And obviously, at some point in time, he's going to become Nightwing. You know when, but don't say anything. But
Who told you I know when?
well, you've watched every season, so you have an
I
idea.
haven't watched every season. I've only watched up to like the second episode of season 3.
Good for you.
Okay, well,
I'm still
so you
saying.
probably still know.
I'm still saying.
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
taken a
think.
break because
Listen,
it just-
predicting whether or not Dick Grayson actually becomes Nightwing, that's not a spoiler. We all know that at some point this guy becomes Nightwing.
It's just a matter of when.
how. It's a matter of when.
can't
It's a
have
matter
two
of how.
Robins.
And it's the build up to it that makes it really
we have one
interesting.
Robin. Robin's dead. He kills Robin in Asylum. Grayson, he's like, I'm done with Robin. So
Right.
this is the start of the transformation of him going from Robin, trying to, this is the whole Spider-Man 3 transformation where he is the black Spider-Man, and he has to shed that to become the good Spider-Man again. He shedded one thing, and now he's going to go through his whole process of figuring out who he is now, and then he becomes Nightwing. That's my theory.
Well, hopefully here Dick Grayson doesn't go strutting down the street to disco music.
Hey everybody, Lee from Black and White Reviews here. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for tuning in, checking out our conversation. If you like this discussion and you want to hear more about this specific subject or other things, check us out on our podcasting sites, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, or Google Podcasts. We're up on pretty much all of them. So yeah, thanks again for popping by, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.